Thank you to everybody who has taken the time to tune in today to Crow's weekly threat intelligence briefing. We'll be covering the most recent cutting-edge trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. My name is Keith Wojcicki, Global Head of Threat Intelligence. We are joined by Senior Vice President George Glass, Vice President Dave Truman, Vice President Mikesh Nagar, Senior Associate Ryan Hicks, all from our Cyber Threat Intelligence team. Today, we're going to cover the following trends our team is concentrating on. Ryan's going to go through some VMware Aira, and George is going to take us through Patch Tuesday. Dave is going to look at Omega targeting SaaS, and to wrap it up, Mikesh is going to talk to us about VMware ESXi 0 Day. So I'm going to turn over to Ryan.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So we released this last week as an out-of-band alert. So last week, VMware released an advisory on 3 vulnerabilities impacting ARIA operations for networks. And this is formerly known as vRealize Network Insight. As you see from the left, there are 3 vulnerabilities in the advisory, ranging between high and critical CVSS rating. And these all affect all minor versions of version 6 of this particular product. To start off with, 20887. So this is a command injection vulnerability, which could lead to remote code execution. And this particular vulnerability of the 3 has already a proof of concept posted online. The researchers that developed the proof of concept noted that the vulnerability is a chain of 2 issues leading to remote code execution that could be exploited by unauthenticated attackers. And so the first step of this chain bypasses Nginx configuration, which essentially allows access to a particular procedure on an endpoint. And the second is a crafted request that can essentially exploit that procedure. The second vulnerability, 20888, is an authentication deserialization vulnerability, leading to, again, remote code execution. And lastly, 20889 is an information disclosure vulnerability, the lowest of the 3 CVSS scores. And for the latter 2, there's no additional technical information available at this time, such as a POC or whether it's been exploited in the wild. And so for mitigations, there are currently no workarounds provided by VMware for any of the vulnerabilities, and therefore the only mitigation at this stage is to patch using the guidance provided by VMware, and patches were released on June the 10th. And due to the nature of these vulnerabilities, being externally facing products, it's likely that threat actors will begin to exploit these in the near future, particularly the first CV there as a proof of concept is already publicly available, so no doubt people are already looking into using that for themselves. And this therefore should increase patching priority for this. With that, I'll hand back to you, Keith.
Thanks, Ryan. George is going to take us through Patch Tuesday. George.
Thank you, Keith. Hello, everyone. Another month, another Patch Tuesday. This month, 94 vulnerabilities were fixed, 1 0-day vulnerability, and 32 remote code execution vulnerabilities were addressed. Just a bit of housekeeping in terms of Windows patching before we get into the more interesting vulnerabilities. Something for administrators to note is that Windows 10 Home and Pro Edition 21H2 are now end of servicing, which means they'll no longer receive security updates. This does not apply to Windows 10 Enterprise. There's 1 more year of servicing for 21H2. So for any administrators that know that there is some Windows 10 Pro maybe in their environment, something to consider upgrading to 22H2 or Windows 11. So let's get into some of the vulnerabilities. 2 vulnerabilities affect Microsoft Exchange, CVSS scores of 8 and 8.8 respectively. The first vulnerability, 28310, means an authenticated attacker on the local network, that's an important note, can execute commands through a remote PowerShell session. And then the second one is an authenticated attacker, again, can target server accounts using network calls to trigger arbitrary code execution. I'm afraid that's all of the technical detail that was provided by Microsoft, but it certainly seems like it's a potential lateral movement vector for attackers to exploit. So that should be high up on the list of devices to patch. And then I mentioned a 0-day. It's a little bit of a cheat because the 0-day was a Chromium 0-day in the V8 JavaScript engine. that we covered, I think last week or maybe the week before. It was fixed by Google on June 5th, but of course, Edge being Chromium-based browser, it was addressed in this month's Patch Tuesday. So that's been patched. And then there's one other potentially interesting vulnerability, 33131, affecting Outlook with a CVSS score of 8.8, and Microsoft lists this as remote code execution. There's been quite a few Outlook vulnerabilities recently whereby an attacker can target Outlook specifically with a specially crafted email or a rich text document or Word document. To me, this seems like it could be a potential vulnerability that is exploited in the same sort of way. So again, those looking to patch, I'd focus on that one as well. And that's it from me this week. I'll hand back to Keith.
Thanks, George. And we're going to go to Dave and talk about Omega. Dave?
Yep. The Omega ransomware actor instigated a successful attack targeting an organization's SaaS infrastructure. This marks a change to their previous behavior in that they didn't attempt to encrypt files for ransom or move laterally through the network. They instead focused entirely on extortion from data theft. The attack consisted of utilizing a compromised set of credentials for the organization's Office 365 environment. The credentials in question had global administrator privileges, which, as the name suggests, has almost total access to the Office 365 environment. Furthermore, these credentials were not protected with multi-factor authentication. A good multi-factor authentication implementation could have stopped the actor from accessing the environment with the stolen credentials. Not having multi-factor authentication for admin users is a highly risky decision and not recommended. Once the actor gained access to the environment, they created their own global administrator user with access to all of the organization's key collaboration tools, including Teams, Exchange, and SharePoint. They then proceeded to remove all other administrator users from the environment. Utilizing the access they gained, they exfiltrated hundreds of files for use in extortion, with the removal of the other administration users hampering the organization's ability to respond. There has been a recent increase in the actors jumping straight to exfiltration of data extortion and not trying to deploy ransomware to environments. This data reduces the actor's need for lateral movement if a source of valuable data is directly targetable. It is highly recommended to make use of good multi-factor authentication and to monitor for suspicious user accounts being created in an organization's environment. Keith?
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it. We're going to have Mikesh wrap everything up today with the VMware ESXi 0 Day.
Thank you, Keith, and hello, everyone. VMware has recently patched CVE 2023-20867, a previously unknown vulnerability within their VMware ESXi platform. The vulnerability was actively exploited by a threat actor, resulting in unauthorized access to virtual machines and exfiltration of sensitive data. The threat actor leveraged a specific flaw within VMware tools authentication, allowing them to execute their attack. By exploiting this vulnerability, they deployed multiple backdoors named Virtual Pitter and Virtual Pi on the compromised ESXi host, gaining unauthorized access to Windows and Linux virtual machines. The backdoors enabled the actors to carry out privilege escalations as well as compromising the confidentiality and integrity of the guest virtual machines. To deliver the backdoor malware, the actors manipulated vSphere installation bundles, VIBs, typically used by administrators to create and maintain ESXi images. These were maliciously crafted to achieve their objectives. Additionally, another strain of malware called VirtualGate was identified. VirtualGate acted as an in-memory only dropper, facilitating the deobfuscation of the second stage DLL payloads on the compromised virtual machines. The unique communication channels between both the guest and the host systems, where either role can act as client or server, provided the attacker with a means of persistence as long as the backdoor was deployed and the attacker gained initial access to any guest machines. What's concerning is the threat actor group deep understanding and technical expertise in ESXi, vCenter, VMware's virtualization platform. In a previous campaign, the same threat actor group exploited a zero-day vulnerability, CVE 2022-41328. This vulnerability was in FortiGate's firewall devices and were used to compromise networks. They used this access to move laterally and gain persistence on FortiManagers and FortiAnalyzers devices. Subsequently, they backdoored the ESXi vCenter's machines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh. And thank you to everybody who has taken the time to tune in today to Crow's weekly threat intelligence briefing. We hope you found this session informative. Enjoy the rest of your day and make sure to tune in next week. Thanks again, everyone.